All right, so welcome back to our uh, oh base building for our British 6-pounder. There it is, right there. It'll fit right in there nicely. We got our dead tree, and I have all that latex rubber. It has dried on it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to paint or prime, I guess you can say, the whole thing in a dark ultra flat brown here. So kind of like an overall coat. It'll be for the tree, it'll be for the dirt, it'll be for the sandbags. Sandbags need to be primed anyway before I start painting them. So we'll prime everything in this one color, and I'll show it to you when I return. I'm gonna go take this outside in a well ventilated area and spray it with this ultra flat, kind of like a dark chocolate brown. Probably more like a camouflage black brown from Vallejo. So I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. All right, there you go. It's still a little wet, but as you can see, overall it's a nice dark brown, and the tree is starting to look like a tree. And if I could zoom in, I would. Let me see if I can't. There we go. I'll pick it up. As you can see, it doesn't look like a wire aperture, really. I probably could have put another coat of the liquid rubber, but this is really, it's going to do just fine. It's going to serve its purpose for sure. Just a broken down tree or burnt down tree or war-torn tree of some kind like that. For sure. We're definitely going to work with it. I may put some green on it, but not much. Maybe around the tops or the tips and stuff like that. But leave this down here like as if it's been charred or something down here or something along those lines. But it's ultra flat paint. It looks a little glossy at the moment, but I'm sure when it dries, it's going to be flat. I've used it on other stuff before, but there you go. So next step is we're going to start painting the sandbags and the boxes. Well, actually, I'm sorry. The next step we're going to do is we're going to paint, we're going to dry brush the ground and get the dirt the proper color with a couple of Vallejo colors. And then we're going to paint sandbags, crates, and lastly, we're going to do our tree there. So I'll be right back with what we're going to do next. All right, so now that we've got this all dry, this is all dry. It said it's ultra flat. I think I just didn't shake up the can that much, but it's no matter. It's just a primer. It's just a base coat to use. So the first thing I like to do on anything like bases or anything like that is the ground. You're going to do a lot of dry brushing on it. So the first color I like to use when I'm using a dark brown is a flat earth. And we're going to do something called a dry brush. And it's not so much a dry brush because it's more of an overbrushing. It's kind of a heavy dry brush, if you will. So we're going to use Vallejo Model Color Panzer Series Flat Earth first. So we're going to put some the flat earth out here on our pellet. I've shaken it up. So we're going to put a little bit on there. And this is going to be the first of 3 dry brushings. And you want to get the majority of the paint, not as much as you normally would, but to where if you swipe it, you can see paint right there, like on my hand. So, and we're going to just go over this kind of heavily. This is going to be our main color for the dirt. So don't worry about if you put it on too heavy in spots, it's okay. Our base color of the very dark brown will take care of that. The underneath and flat earth, really, this is the kind of the color we're going for anyway. So it's just a dark base to put underneath it. So I'm going to do this liberally across the whole entire base. So, and I'm going to need more paint, I think. So I'm just going to wipe it a couple times and then go to town. As you can see, we're already seeing a color a change in the color. And the other colors that we're going to use for our dry brush are going to be lighter and lighter as far as their tone goes and stuff like that. So I kind of just drag the brush across. I go back and forth because I really just want to put a nice coat on there so it's not so dark. So I'm going to put some more paint on my palette. I always underestimate how much paint I'm going to need, but that's okay. Not a lot dries on the palette. So, all right. So let's see. There we go. There's the overbrushing I was looking for. Oh, all right. So being war torn, lots of bombs hit it. That's why I'm using a dark base color, kind of like a war torn earth. And some of this will be covered up. This main part here will have a few, tufts in it, but it won't have a lot of grass because, well, I mean, I'm going to put some flocking in there, but this main part here is going to be empty because of the artillery piece. So I'm going to carry on with this color, and I'll be right back when we're ready for the next shade. So I'll see you in a sec. Right. So there's our first initial dry brush on the ground, and as you can see, it's starting to become a real dirt ground color, and starting to kind of look like some terrain here. So like I said before, I did just an overbrushing, not worrying about how much paint I have on my brush, really. Just not super wet, but we got it on there. So, all right, so our next step is another dry brush to kind of bring the dirt a little bit of higher tone. And I'm kind of going to ignore this area here. And the reason why is because I have this artillery piece, and it's going to sit somewhere right here. And as it fired, it dug in, and I'm going to make the dirt just be a little bit darker around it. And I'm going to have the dirt around it be a little bit lighter, as if people have been stepping around the machine, the artillery piece and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to kind of leave this, we're going to barely go over it, but we're going to leave it kind of darker than the rest of it. So our next step is to use Tan Earth Model Color Panzer Series Tan Earth. And we're going to do a lighter dry brush, not so much of an overbrush, using our dry brush here. I got a big, real stiff stipple brush, I guess you can call it. But it's kind of my dry brushing brush for terrain pieces. So we're going to put some on the palette. All right, so I'm going to put some on the palette here. And make sure you shake your paints. All right, so here we go. I'm going to zoom out here just a little bit. And I'm just going to rub this off. I'm going to rub off the paint a little bit more than what I did with that first color of Flat Earth. And I'm going to scrape it one more time. And we're going to start on the outside edge here. And I'm just going to drag the brush one direction. That's all I'm going to do, is drag it one direction everywhere but what I think I'm going to have my artillery piece or my anti-tank gun there. And it's just going to bring out the colors even more, or bring out the dirt even more and give it more of a shade. So we're going to do the outside here, and I'm just going one direction, as you can see. There we go. And we'll get this outside here. And just when you think there's no more paint on the brush, think again. Just keep going and keep moving on spots you haven't touched. And there's plenty of paint on that brush when you're dry brushing. So, and like I said, we're starting with the dirt, and after the dirt is finished, we're going to move on to the I'm going to move on to the crates and boxes here. We're going to do the sandbags last, and there's a reason for that, and I'll share that with, or the sandbags and the tree last. One of the reasons why we're saving the tree for last is because I always bump I work my way from the inside, I guess you can say, like a miniature, which is the ground, out. So this being the tallest, I work that last because there's going to be quite a bit of work to be done on that tree. I'm going to make burn marks as if it's smoldered and has ash marks and stuff like that. So, and I have decided to put a couple of remaining leaves on the very tops of it. So now I've left this middle part alone, and I've just kind of went over it all around. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I'll come back with the next color we're going to use. So I'll be back in a sec. So as you can see, there's more definition in our ground. You can see it a lot better. I've kept this middle part darker for our artillery piece, for our anti-tank gun or what have you. In the center here, as if they're walking around, like I said. And there we go. So now our last color we're going to use for the dirt is cork brown. Cork brown is a much lighter shade, so you don't want as much on your brush. Don't be sure to shake your paints. Only put enough down that you need. All right. So we're going to get some on our brush, and we're going to, what I like to call swirls, to get it on all the bristles there. And we're going to wipe off the majority of the paint. Now I'm using a paper towel, and I will tell you that cardboard works a heck of a lot better. It soaks up the water in the paint a lot quicker. If you prefer using that, I'm going to do a quick wipe, and now I'm going to start from the outside and work my way in, and I'm going to brush out rather than brush in. That way it puts the focus in the center, so of the dirt there. And I'm just going to do a small section right there, and we'll do the edges. And it's not much of a different color than what we used the second time around with the tan earth. It's just a little bit brighter, and it's just meant to catch the very tips. So use a little bit more there. All right. And as you can see, significantly brighter color that I'm putting on there. So I'll do a little bit over here, a little bit over there. I'll do just a small, after I've got most of the paint, over the top of the center there. So, all right. So this shouldn't take long. This is probably the easiest thing to do. And this is how I do all my mud and dirt and stuff like that for all my bases and stuff. So you can actually use this for your bases, for your miniatures or anything like that. So there you go. There's the dirt. So just taking those steps. And as you can see, as I put it down, you're seeing all the focus on the brighter paint on the outsides, and this center part is much darker, especially when there's gunpowder and hot shots going off and stuff like that. It's significantly darker in the middle, and they're walking around there stirring up the dirt and stuff like that, and it could be muddier there, and this is just the topsoil. So there you go. So that's the dirt. So now we're going to paint the crates, and I'll be back in a sec. All right, so now we got our dirt taken care of. We're going to paint these crates and dry brush them and take care of them, and then we're going to do the sandbags. Now this gets a little complicated with these sandbags on top of this crate here. So when we do our sandbags, I'm going to put a little piece of tape here because we're going to be dry brushing these sandbags, and I don't want it to get over my crates. And not all of them are the same color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use beige brown, and brown sand. And I'm also going to use uh, um, a strong tone wash over the top of it before I give it a dry brush. So they're going to be a couple different colors, and they're going to be highlighted in different ways. But we're going to start with our beige brown, and we're going to paint a couple of the crates beige brown and a couple of the crates brown sand. So, all right. So I'm going to put some beige brown. And you could actually, what I've been doing with a lot of my crates, you can use a color called New Wood. It's a Panzer Ace Vallejo color. And it has a much more wood look to it, of course, obviously. But just to show that these are, you know, the crates were not all the same. Man, I grabbed the crappiest brush today. It's okay. We'll work with it. Or it'll work with us. And no big deal if you get it on the ground. You can always, on your ground color, you can always fix that with a quick dry brush. So, no big deal. All right. So you just go through and you paint each one of the crates a base coat. You can actually leave one that's dark brown color if you really want to. It's a much darker crate than the other one. I think I'm going to be leaving this one this dark brown color. That way it makes it easy too. And all I'm really doing, I'm not being real neat with it, because this brown color is creating dents and dings in the crate for me by me leaving some of that dark brown behind. When you put a wash over it, it kind of looks like it has some dents and dings in it, in the wood. So there we go. See how it kind of looks like it has some damage on this corner here by leaving that dark brown, and over here like it's been dented or dinged or wet or something along those lines. So I'm going to carry on with this with the crates, and I'll be back to show you guys after I'm finished. Right, so I painted these boxes up in a couple different colors. I went ahead and painted that top one. And as you can see, you can take advantage of your dark brown undercoat like this here on your boxes, because as you can see, I just kind of did a heavy overbrushing on the box there, and you can already see it looks like it's either wet wood or damaged wood on the crates itself. Because when you put a strong tone wash on it, it's going to darken it down quite a bit, and it's going to give it that weathered look on your crates there. So I took advantage of using that dark undercoat. So doesn't look like, yeah, looks like they're pretty dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our strong tone Army Painter strong tone, or you can use an Agrax Earthshade. Either one works great. This strong tone is actually darker than the Agrax, but that's up to you. You can add a little bit of the black wash, Nuln oil from GW, and mix that with Agrax Earthshade, and you get the same effect as a strong tone. So I'm going to go ahead and put some on my palette. Shake it up. Make sure you shake it up. And we are going to get us a brush. I use the Army Painters brush series. I live by these. This one is the Regiment brush. And we're just going to put the strong tone on, or begin to. Looks like it's still wet over here on this side. So we'll add it to this side over here first. So we're just going to glob it on our brush, and we're just going to go to town with it. Doesn't matter how heavy you put it on there. I found the heavier the better sometimes. Oops, I got some on the ground there. That's okay. There we go. Try to avoid getting it on the ground. It's okay if you do, like I just did there. We can fix that. It's no big deal. If you get any paint on the ground itself, the best match to the dark brown that I can recommend using is German camouflage black brown, which is pretty much the same color. It's just, you know, a very, very dark brown, and you'll just add it to that spot you, like I did, and add it to that spot. It should clear and do the dry brushing again the same way we did before, and it should fix that, no problem. And you know what? Over the years, I have found that painting is nothing but making tons of mistakes and then cleaning up afterwards and cleaning those mistakes up, especially when you're painting miniatures and stuff like that. So now I got it pretty thick. What I'm going to do, if you don't like how it's pooling in some areas, you just kind of take a paper towel, dry off your brush, and you can dot your brush there, and it'll soak up that paint from the areas you think you have it too heavy, which I do in a couple spots there. Kind of clean it up a little bit. Oh, I don't have enough over there. You just want to get a good coverage over the whole thing, because we're going to bring this back up with some dry brushes. So using the same colors you put down on it. So, all right, let's get some of that up. Apologies if it wasn't in camera there. It's going to shrink as it dries, but you will notice the big pools. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to carry on doing this to the other two crates over there, and I'll be back to show you what they look like when they're completely dry. So I'll be back in a sec. All right, so the crates are still drying. As you can see, they're two-toned. They look weathered and damaged already as they're drying. So while that's happening, we're going to go ahead and, while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to go ahead and do the base coat for our sandbags here. And we're going to use, and I know this sounds crazy, but a yellow ochre first. It creates, since we're going to be putting a strong tone over the top of the sandbags, this creates a good undercoat for our sandbag color. And I've done it before. It looks good. So we're going to go ahead and apply that now. And just like our crates, you don't have to be perfect with this. You just put it on there, leaving some of the crevices and leaving some of that brown show through. So just get them the good yellow color, spread it over the whole entire thing. And once it dries, we'll throw a wash on it and then do our dry brush. The sandbags are real easy to paint, I have found over the years. So I found a simple and easy way, something similar to what the terrain tutor does as far as painting his sandbags. He uses, I think, a house paint, which is probably smarter. But I use a dark brown, and then I'll overbrush is what I'm calling this. As you can see, I'm not getting absolutely everything. Doing an overbrush of this yellow color. So just kind of want the tops. If you leave those cracks and crevices alone, they'll be darker. It'll look a little bit better, I think. So as you get closer to the ground, be a little bit more careful. Try not to hit your ground with this color. And like I said, you can fix the ground color with a German camouflage black brown, and then our three highlight colors that we used to highlight up the dirt. But just be careful when you're doing this step. So I'm going to carry on overbrushing these sandbags, and I'll be back when this is finished. And hopefully by the time we're done painting those, our crates will be dry. So I'll be back in a sec. All right, we're just about ready to do our dry brushing on our crates. They're still not completely 100% dry. On some parts they are. For the most part they are. And we got our yellow base coat, our yellow ochre base coat on the sandbags. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a dry brush on this one right quick, show you what it looks like. So we're going to use, we used beige brown on the bottom box, and on the top box we used a brown sand. So what I'm going to do is use a brown sand to dry brush this top crate, same color we already used, and I will use a beige brown to dry brush the bottom one. So we're going to get the brown sand first, and we're going to use a small dry brush like this. We're going to get most of the paint off. This one you don't want to overbrush. You want to actually do a pretty thorough, you want to do a dry brush. You want to get most of the paint off the brush itself. So I've done that, and I'm just going to skim across the top of this box. And I'm only going to do one dry brush on it, because it's been out there in the field, it's been lugging around, it's been rained on, and it's been pretty beat up. So we're just going to do a very light dry brush on this. So what we did was we took our light color, our brown sand, and we're dry brushing. Trying to be as neat as we possibly can, not to hit the other box. And there you go. It's all dry brushed up. Looks good, looks like it's weathered, it's damaged, that sort of thing. And once that the rest of that strong tone dries on these things, it'll look even better. So, all right, so now we did that. So now we're going to go for the brown, the beige brown. Same thing, get most of the paint off the brush as you possibly can. And what I did was I didn't even rinse off my brush. I just kind of stuck it in this paint, and that's okay. You already got it on your palette, or if you should have some left on your palette. If it hasn't dried up, and mixing colors, there's nothing wrong with that. So as you can see, all the excess I'm wiping off there. I'm going to get some more brown paint there. It's kind of a blending of colors. You don't have to, you can still maintain a dry brush even though you hit some of those spots that have the strong tone on it already. Just kind of rinse your brush off and keep going. So, blends all the colors together. All right, let me get this side here. All right. Okay, so our boxes are done, and now they look field damaged, and they're looking pretty nice. So I'm going to do that to these other two over here. Same thing as I did on these two boxes. And then I'm going to put a strong tone wash over the top of all of this yellow ochre. So I'll be back to show you guys that. All right, so now I've dry brushed those boxes. They're looking good. They're ready to rock and roll. So now what we're going to do, as I can show you the other boxes, and they've been dry brushed, same as these two over here. They're pretty much finished. So now we're going to take our strong tone ink right here, and we're going to put it all over those yellow sandbags. So put a little bit more strong tone on the wet palette, and I'm going to grab a bigger brush than the one I was using. All right, so we're going to just put it on our big brush, and we're going to run that brush just over the top of this yellow here. just cover the whole thing. All right. Now, like I said, you could use Agrex or Shade for this. Adding a little bit of Nuln oil to make it just a little bit darker. It'll do the same thing and have the same effect. So, doing the yellow, you could do white. You could do a pale sand or something a lot lighter if you want. The reason why I have this yellow ochre is it's kind of like these sandbags have been out here for a while, and they have been soaked through, and that yellow will give it more of a tinge than say your normal white, being the like the sandbags are brand new. So I have to put some more strong tone on the palette here. And I do this a lot for my my figures. Anytime I put a wash on, I use Flow Improver, Vallejo's Flow Improver. It kind of helps spread it out a little bit better. But since I'm wanting this to be heavy, I'm not adding any to it. But you certainly could. It'll actually make it flow a heck of a lot better onto the sandbags. But really, we're just kind of trying to tone it down. That's why I used a brighter yellow. And, because I knew I was putting this really heavy yellow, or heavy strong tone on. So I'm just going to put it over all the sandbags. Because remember, we're going to be dry brushing this too with our like beige, or kind of like a warm beige color. Beige by Vallejo. There we go. With a little bit of pale sand mixed in. So, and I'll show you that step later. All right. So, being careful not to hit our boxes over on this side. Come on. We're going to put this strong tone. And remember, if you get a little bit on the boxes, it's no big deal. They have strong tone on them already. It'll dry just fine. Just do another dry brush to it. So, here we go. All right. Almost done. This is going to take a little while to dry. So, we're going to leave this to dry overnight. And there you go. We have our strong tone on there, all over the sandbags. And that's as far as I can go. There's not really much other I can do but the tree. So we're going to stop there, and that's the end of part 3. Join me again in part 4, the final installment of this terrain base for our 6-pounder anti-tank gun, which I'll put in there. And yeah, it's already looking good. It's coming together. It's starting to come together. So please join me in part 4, where we're gonna take care of the rest of the sandbags and dry brush them, and then we're gonna take care of this tree and make it look war torn and like it's been on fire in places, and it's burnt in the other places, and ash and stuff like that. And we're going to flock it and put some tufts on and things of that nature. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. Please tell a friend. Please spread the word. I'd really appreciate it. Like this video. Leave me some comments. And last but not least, from me to you, ta-ta, and I will catch you in part 4.